Hello, everyone. This is Sridhar Sarnabat along with Juliet Creech. It is Saturday, April 11th, 2026, and we are coming to you from the San Francisco Bay Area. Hello, Juliet.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Great. We're
Weather's great
talk
this weekend.
we are talking today about headspace, and for any listeners out there who are wondering what do we mean by that, I myself don't know what we mean by that. I am coming into this topic cold, and that is by choice because I want to go through the same educational process as our listeners, and so beyond just a basic outline of what we would like to talk about, which at the moment is of limited meaning to me. I would like to start at from scratch, knowing nothing. So there is this term headspace, and before I ask you what we mean by that, and why we are talking about this, I'm just going to ask. I'm just going to give my thoughts on what I understand by that term to a layman. Headspace, so that there isn't literally space inside our head, our brain, our head or and our brain is can be modeled as compartments, a very complex infrastructure. You could model it as a city, a country of cities, a building of rooms. It's actually electrical connections. But when I think of headspace, when people use that term occasionally, I don't hear that term very often. But if I'm thinking my head is in that space, what I'm thinking is maybe I'm in a my among the temporary states that my brain goes through the course of a day or a week, a routine. There may be times of the week when I'm in a different space, like if it's a Friday night, for example, our listeners may be in the space where they just want to blow off steam and relax. They might want to go out. They might want to go to a movie. They probably do not want to work, which is why a lot of places like libraries, for example, are closed on evenings, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, much to my disappointment. But headspace, there are various spaces we might have. We might be in the space where we want to relax. We might be in the headspace where we want to do some productive work. We might be in a headspace where we want to be creative. With that in mind, we're talking in the context of positive psychology and the Summa method. But Julia, this episode is about headspace in therapy, coaching, and everything that is derived from that. So, with that in mind, could you explain to us what is headspace?
Headspace is basically like the atmosphere inside of your head, what it's like to be in your head right now, whether you're thinking, how clearly you're thinking, how regulated or dysregulated you are, how activated, um, how calm, basically your state. And your headspace is also it kind of it affects how you co-regulate. So we co-regulate with each other. We actually affect each other's heart rates and things like that through energy and maybe micro expressions or whatnot. Who knows? Um, and so the headspace that you're in can affect other people's headspace. And that is very important in therapy and coaching. And you can actually also use it in your regular life.
So let me ask you right now, what space inside your head are you? I don't am I phrasing that question even correctly? What space are you in your head as of right now?
Calm centered. I don't know. Uh, Probably more like my therapy headspace.
That makes sense. And you mentioned something interesting, which I'd like to talk more about as we go through this. The headspace that may be shared with other people. I'm hoping that we will talk about that at some point. But let us not get ahead of ourselves. Headspace. If you haven't already explained, pardon me if you have, why is understanding our headspace and using it as a construct useful in therapy and coaching
Mhm.
and
All right.
positive psychology in general?
So generally, I think that there's two types of people who might be listening right now. So we might be talking to people who are regular lay people. We also may be talking to people who are therapists and coaches. And it's a little bit different answer for each of them. So for you, having some control over your headspace is very important because it gives you control over how well you can think and where you're at, where your mood is, where how your anxiety level is, what kind of thoughts you're having. And for therapists and coaches and other people in helping professions, it's extremely important because a lot of the service that you're providing for someone else is actually giving them good headspace. It's sharing your calmness and sense of like ease and comfort with the other person so that their fight or flight instinct can reduce and they can think more clearly, feel more calmly. And that's why, generally, if you have a really good therapy relationship, maybe you find that you can think better when you're talking to your therapist than when you're outside of session. That's
Okay.
because of headspace.
I see. And you mentioned the word mood. How important is it that we distinguish between what we mean by mood versus headspace? And also, is this a term that you have constructed to mean something, a concept that you are this term headspace, is it a term that or that you're using to describe a concept that is something you've come up with, and maybe you could tell us where or how or when you came up with this term.
I don't know if I came up with it or not, actually. It's just kind of how I think of it. And it's always how I've thought of it. So I don't know if other people use it in the same way. It's not always easy to know. And mood is part of headspace, but headspace is not just mood. It is
I see.
your state, like the state inside of your head.
That makes sense. Yes. So it's one mood is one component of headspace.
Mhm.
Okay. So there apparently is such thing as a good headspace and a bad headspace. What is a good headspace?
When you're calm and you're able to think clearly, you're not too activated, you are able to basically be thinking about and feeling in the way that you want to, right? Um, and if you're a therapist or coach, this means being able to be fully present for somebody else in session. If you're the client of that therapist or coach, it's being the recipient of that head state and also sharing in it, hopefully.
Would it be fair to, is it correct to say that we should all aim to be in the same headspace, or are you saying that there are different headspaces for different goals?
Yes, there's different heads. So if I, so I don't like to worry. And if I'm in a state where I need to worry about something, I generally make an appointment and I say, okay, I will worry about this for half an hour on Wednesday at 6 p.m. or whatever, right? And so when I am going to think about something that worries me, I need to go in with a different intention than when I'm going to have a session with a client. When I have a session with a client, I want to clear out all my emotions. I don't want to bring anything with me. I want to slow down my thinking so that I don't have racing thoughts that keep me from understanding them or listening to them very well. And I want to make sure that my physiology is very calm and centered so that I can project that and co-regulate the clients and help them. So if the client is, for instance, exploring something very difficult and emotionally activating, it's my job to help them not get too upset, to allow them to get upset enough so that they're experiencing their emotions and being able to process it, but not too upset. Because if they get too upset, then that's giving into a lot of people's fear that I don't want to explore difficult things because I don't trust that I'm going to recover.
It's interesting. You mentioned that sometimes when maybe somebody asks me about a question that is difficult, and I say I don't want to talk about it, or maybe some trauma survivors who they don't pursue justice because they don't want to re-experience that trauma. It is that is another way of saying that we we don't want to be in that particular space in our head whether or not that's good or bad for the goal that we are trying to accomplish.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe it depends on the person. Maybe the person just doesn't want to think about it. Maybe the person is not able to maintain their own headspace well enough, right? So, being able to have a measure of control over your headspace is a skill, and it's a skill that you learn. Hopefully, it was modeled by your caregivers when you were young and you're able to manage your internal states well enough to be able to deal with things. If you're not, then you're probably never going to be in the headspace where you really want to explore anything that's really upsetting because you can't calm yourself down very well. So this is like your headspace is what it's like to be in your head, and giving yourself good headspace is teaching yourself how to have some control over what the state is in your mind.
Understood. What do you look for to know if you are getting getting it in therapy or coaching?
hmm So if you feel calm, if your anxiety level is lower than maybe it usually is, if you can think clearly and you feel safe and not judged, um, and you feel basically comfortable, right? All of these things are a mixture of things that your therapist is providing you with and your response to them.
Understood. And I think you've explained, but I'll ask anyway. Why does it make a difference? Is this because the goal of therapy is to process whatever situation we are having problems with, such that we can get to a better state?
So when you have a problem, the problem itself regulates you, okay? It causes you stress, it causes you anxiety, which affects your nervous system and it activates you and it reduces blood flow to your frontal lobe and actually reduces your ability to think well. And so when you are in therapy or coaching and your therapist or coach is helping you calm down and regulate your headspace and to get out of that fight or flight mode, they are actually doing two things by doing that. They're first making you actually literally able to think better by being more calm. And also, they're modeling for you that regulation because when we get dysregulated through our own thoughts, it can we can get out of the habit of regulating ourselves. And so the modeling of the regulation itself helps you be more regulated after and between sessions.
Understood. Now, just catching up on these notes here. We talked about the situation where in therapy, the headspace is a key component of being treated. S- How can you give yourself good headspace where maybe you don't have a professional, or maybe yeah, it's a different time of the week when you need to manage your headspace, or it's something that you don't have the benefit of a therapist to help you with headspace. How can you give yourself good headspace?
So first, it's not just about therapy. This is also very important in coaching, and things like that. If you're a helper, if you're in a helping profession, it's a really good idea to learn how to give good headspace. If you're looking for someone in a helping profession, especially one that is about regulating yourself, it's really good idea to find someone that can give you good headspace. And yes, you can give it to yourself. So there's I look at it as three components, especially when you're providing for someone else. So there's first the physical components, so physically regulating yourself. And the way that I do that is through long exhale breathing. So you breathe in for four, a count of four, then breathe out for a count of six. And while I'm doing that, I imagine that I'm breathing in a warm summer breeze and it's bringing calm with me in and out of my body. And I just make sure that I'm settled into my body and that I'm calm and do that way. And then the second element is to make sure that you're emotionally centered. For a therapist or coach before a session, you would want to clear yourself out so that any emotions that come in are probably coming from the client, because that's important to be able to tell. So what I do is I usually put my emotions in a container. So like some sort of little box. I like Fabergé eggs. I think they're beautiful. So that's what I do. I have a Fabergé egg shelf in my head, and I just go grab the prettiest one and put my feelings in there for the duration of the session. And you can do that if you have strong feelings and you need to work. You need to do something. You need to function. You can do that too. You can set up a place in your head, some sort of containment system where you open up a box or a file folder or anything that you can contain something in, and then put your feelings and your thoughts in there and put them away on the shelf just for a little bit. And so that is a really important way to be able to clear your headspace. And then the last element of headspace is your cognitive element. So what's going on with your thoughts? And I find that the most important thing to being able to regulate your own headspace in terms of thoughts is to be able to turn down the volume on your thoughts. So when I say volume here, I mean the rate of your thoughts, not just how loud they are, but how fast they're coming. I find it helpful to do something I call thought river, and there's a couple of elements, but one of the elements is that you think of your thoughts as a river, your stream of consciousness as a river, and your thoughts are leaves on the river. And then you can imagine that you have a knob that controls the volume of the river, that how much water there's flowing down it and how many thought leaves, and just turn that volume down and slow it down. And the more you try this, the better you get at it. And the slower your thoughts come, the better you can deal with them, manage them in a good way, and choose whether or not you want to interact with them. So all three of these are about taking some control over what's going on inside of your head.
And does that require mindfulness? You mentioned some mechanical or physical practices there. I don't wish to alienate maybe some of our audience members who are who don't incorporate those kind of mechanical practices into
Maybe it doesn't
their
relate to them. Maybe they don't want to. I mean, I'm not really sure how you can manage your headspace without managing your headspace. Like
understood.
you have to be willing to engage with your inner processes in order to be able to do that.
Understood. You don't think that say therapists who are not try either trying to influence their patient or the patient themselves is using mindfulness techniques, breathing techniques, and mechanical techniques, etc. You don't think you can control your headspace without uh, that without mindfulness techniques. Is
Well,
that what we are
it
saying?
doesn't have to be mindfulness techniques. It has to be whatever works for you. I'm just saying what works for me.
Understood.
Um, You got to find what works for you. But the fact is that you're going to have to work with your mental space in order to work with your mental space. Like you can't just say, I'm going to control my headspace and then
Understood.
not engage with your headspace.
Maybe for some people that might include writing, journaling. Maybe for some others it might include having externalizing your thoughts in some way. Maybe having a conversation with a chat bot, though. The concern there is that is maybe stepping on the toes of what the therapist is intending to engage with you in. But yes, I think it's important to recognize that there are different ways for clients to be to manage their headspace.
Okay.
Now, ha coming back to what we said that was interesting at the start about sharing headspace with others, how would you share your headspace with others? And are we talking about we are not necessarily talking about as therapists. We are talking about as the subject. I try to avoid using the term patient. It implies some kind of
Clients, yeah.
deficiency or subservience, which is absolutely not the way I like to be and anybody listening here to be regarded. But when it comes to sharing headspace, are the how is that done?
So sharing headspace is important for therapists and coaches to be able to do that. Well, we all share headspace to some degree or another. It's just whether or not we do it intentionally and whether or not we do it effectively, right? So in order to share your headspace with someone, you need to be really like strongly in your headspace and you need to be focused on your headspace and on the other person. And basically that dual focus allows you to be able to radiate your headspace and actually affect how the other person feels with you. Now, is this some sort of energy transfer or something like that, woo-woo like that? I doubt it because it seems to work over Zoom. And if it was a physiological process, that wouldn't really make any sense. So maybe it has to do with micro expressions or other things that our mirror neurons react to.
That absolutely makes sense. Yes, and Zoom, while it has its limitations, it de definitely does give us that shared medium of exchange, and something that really impedes me in sharing headspaces others is when people have their cameras turned off. It's a personal choice that others have for various good reasons, but whether it's a meeting at work or just I'm trying to interact with somebody personally who I don't otherwise know, sharing headspace. I think we are saying that we're looking for ways to connect with the other person, whether they are digital or physical.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Now, how do you stop sharing headspace with others? When would we want to stop
Mhm.
sharing? And is that because it costs energy?
I had this client once, it was the strangest thing. I would go to this person's house and I was full of energy and all just great. And by the time that hour of meeting with them was up, I was tired. I had to schedule them as my last client on Friday because I would be tired for like 2 days after meeting this person for 50 minutes. It was just insane. And I talked to some other therapists about it, and they're like, yeah, some clients are like that. And you have to learn how to shut down your sharing of yourself with them to some degree, or they will just take your energy like that. And so that's the thing is that some people drain your energy and some people add to your energy. And sharing your headspace with somebody else can amplify that if it's whether it's intentional or not. If you're in a situation where you're feeling like somebody's just taking too much of your energy, or if they're projecting too much energy out and you are feeling too activated because of their state, in both of these cases, you would want to shut down sharing the headspace. And you can visualize in your mind closing a door and not letting it come in anymore, or some people can visualize like building a wall, putting up a wall between them and the other person so that the energy exchange stops. Um, if you can't visualize, I'm not sure actually, but maybe if you can shut the door or somehow just bring an end to that sharing idea right away. And that's really helpful.
Understood that in the context of being a professional or a provider, the ability to, like you say, shut the door, there is absolutely a need and a time and a place to do that. From the other perspective, you not as a professional, but as a person who is going about your life, there is a time you or our listener where you need to stop sharing headspace. Now, one example that springs to mind is I know somebody who they 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 don't want to respond to texts. They will say, I either turn my phone off or I just don't look at my phone for the first for a particular part of a day because you don't want to be in a headspace with the people that you maybe are used to being in your space and you uh, for some reason you need to I think another word I use sometimes is I need to unplug myself. Is this the same idea or is that something else? The need to unplug ourselves from the usual communication channels with other people.
I would say it's different, to some degree. Um,
The only reason I ask is you mentioned from the point of view of a professional. I'm just wondering for those of our listeners who are not professionals, but they may be recipients or they are just people who are
well,
not talking about this in the context of therapy. Where
it's more important for you to be able to do it when you're not a therapist
yeah.
or a coach.
Yeah,
Because
so
if you're a therapist or coach, presumably you have some training for how to deal with this. And
yeah.
if you're not a therapist or a coach or someone in a profession like that, then it's going to be much more difficult, likely, for you to deal with headspace issues
Yeah, so
that come from
could
other
you
people.
yeah, could you give us an example of this?
Well, like I was saying, with the person who just drained me to be around them.
Outside of a therapist.
Well, I mean,
I'm trying to
I've been
relate to
around people, I've gone to parties and been around people where somebody just was really draining to be around or really negative and they didn't feel good to be around. They made me feel uncomfortable. And I mean, all of us, I think, have experienced being uncomfortable around another person. And so that would be the time when you want to go inside, visualize shutting the door and not let them in.
is that the only I'm thinking that there is a more universal time to stop sharing outside of external stressors or negativity from other people.
Like what?
Are we mainly talking about that?
Like what?
Well, I was thinking, for example, a work week. There's a time that you don't want to be thinking about work, and if you're getting contacted outside of work, you might draw a boundary there because you no longer want to be in that headspace.
Well,
Or like I,
yeah, but I wouldn't call that I wouldn't call that shutting down sharing headspace with someone else. I would say that that is putting a container around your internal headspace when you leave. So, like when I get done with work for the day, I put my work in a container and I put it on the shelf and I go home so that it's not coming home with me. And I would do that whether or not I'm doing therapy or anything else that I might be doing because I don't want to take work home with me.
What about when it comes to social life or family life? Is there a time we want to stop sharing headspace with those connections, with those
Sure,
people?
if it's negative.
Only if it's negative, though. Is
I
is
mean,
that
why
the
would
thing?
you want to stop sharing headspace if you're having a positive experience with it?
I was thinking more neutral, or not everything is necessarily extremely positive or extremely negative, but it is just a activity or a time and place.
Well, let's say it's neutral. Why would you want to stop? If it's neutral, it's not bothering you, it's not causing any problems, it's not an issue, then I mean, if you want to, sure. But why?
Understood. So this is mainly focused on when it is bad headspace rather than just changing for the sake of uh,
It's up to you. If you're an introvert and you're getting too activated by being around somebody, then maybe you want to shut off your headspace, even if it's neutral, so that you can not spend too much of your social energy in this situation. I mean, that's one situation where I guess I can think of you would want to intentionally shut off headspace, even if it was neutral. I'm guessing there are others as well, but I think most of the time people would want to shut it off when they're feeling like it's not a positive experience.
understood. As we wrap up here, is there anything else that needs to be said about headspace in this initial education of what headspace is?
Nothing that I can think of if you don't have any other questions.
Is this part of the toolkit of the Summa method, or is this an alternative, or is it a spin-off? How would we relate this to the core method that is Summa method?
So I would say that the Summa method is about how it's for both practitioners and for clients, right? And Headspace is both for practitioners and clients. It's what you should expect to give as a practitioner. It's what you should expect to get as a client of the Summa method. And I think that, for both people, whether or not it's of the Summa method or another method, that these are good things to expect.
If any of our listeners wish to reread or reinforce this discussion through an alternate means written, is this mentioned either in your Summa Method book or in any Substack post or any other place? If so, could you tell us where we can learn
Julie,
about Headspace?
JulietCreech.substack.com. I just put out on Thursday um, an article. I believe it's entitled Giving Good Headspace.
Juliet Creech so that is julietcreech.substack.com, and this article was published on April 9th, Giving Good Headspace, your first job as coach or therapist. That uh, and is this mentioned explicitly in the Summa Method book?
No.
Do you think it can be applicable, maybe in as the method evolves and maybe undergoes revisions?
Yeah, I think it's something that probably it would be more of a training, not the general method, but I would expect anybody who's like it's a basic prac practitioner skill to be able to do this. I think it's the difference between mechanically being able to do something and being able to do something well.
Understood. That was this was a discussion about headspace in therapy, coaching, and beyond. We thank you for joining us today, everyone. We will be coming to you with another episode soon, both on the Summa method and other topics that either are mentioned on the Substack blog, julietcreech.substack.com, or the book. And Julia, any closing words or administrative announcements before we wrap up?
Nope. I hope you have a great week.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you very much, listeners. We will be coming to you again soon.